Welcome back from the expo center, everybody. I hope you guys got to learn some stuff, meet some new people, interact during that. We're going to have a little bit of a group panel from some of the people up here in the Twin Cities to just kind of discuss career paths, trajectories, and things that in the Citrix world that affect them. So please welcome Amy Goldstein and Peter Peterson from Citrix, and Larry Marshall from the Tile Shop.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, looking
Hey,
good.
everybody, can you hear me?
More importantly, we can see you.
Thank you.
All right. So to start things off, just let everybody have a chance to find out who you are, where you came from. So quick background introduction, everybody, and let's do this. Let's add in there two things. What was your first version of Citrix or oldest version of Citrix? Either one you want, and then what either caused the most gray or to lose the most hair follicles that you've encountered. And I'd love to start off with our good friend from the Tile Shop, Larry Marshall.
Hey, everybody. I'm Larry Marshall. As Mike said, I work for the Tile Shop. I'm the IT manager here, specializing in virtualization.
You went on mute, Larry.
I don't know how that happened. Okay. If you guys could hear me, I'm Larry Marshall. I am with the Tile Shop. I'm the IT manager here. Let's see, Mike, you said what was the first version of Citrix we used? And Mike's on mute now, so I'll just say it is WinFrame.
No.
I don't know what's happening.
You're back on mute.
You're back on mute, buddy.
Yeah, I don't know why. There you go.
How's this?
Yeah.
Okay. WinFrame version 1.7 or 1.8. That was my very first foray into Citrix. And honestly, I want to say there's a couple pain points I've had with Citrix, all the way back to printing has been number one, and the acronyms. Every day there's a new acronym when it comes to end user computing. So it's hard to keep up.
All right. Well, let's go with Peter Peterson, who's obviously not at all follically challenged. So let's see where he takes this.
No, man. None of these products have ever given me issues such that I lost my hair. So, hey, everybody, my name is Pete Peterson. I'm an account technology strategist here at Citrix. Been working at Citrix since 2018. So I'm coming up on, or past 4 years, I guess it'll be 5 years this year. So first version of Citrix I worked on was XenApp version 5, which wasn't a very popular version. It kind of was kind of released in between Presentation Server 4.5 and XenApp 6.5. It's 6. So I was right around that period right there. We started doing Citrix administration for a small bank in Minnesota here and worked my way up. If I had to pick a product or a feature of Citrix that gave me the most gray hair, I'd say it's got to be printing for sure. Larry, I'm totally with you on that. That's always just been a struggle. There are some things with app layering. There's some nuances with our entire technology stack, but that's technology, that's software. Most of them are things that are easily resolved, but printing has always been a bear, especially back in those days. When it was first kind of coming to terminal services and that type of stuff. So thanks for having me, Mike. And by the way, I am the vice president of Hair Club for Men. Quick plug. So
not sure you're doing a great sales job on that one, but how about we go with Amy now?
Sure. So good morning, everyone. My name is Amy Goldstein. I am a partner technology strategist. I'm getting used to the new title. But I started with Citrix in 2018 as well. And so I came through what was called, I know we'll talk about this, I think, in the future if we go into where we came from, but I came from this new hire training program where they put us on consulting projects. And then one of the other things we would do to learn Citrix is the people who went through the program would break Citrix environments and we would have to troubleshoot it. And my least favorite error was the cannot complete request. That's what sticks in my mind, I think, because you have to figure out if you can't authenticate, but then you get to that cannot complete request and, you feel lost.
Love it. I'm about to get a delivery that I was hoping was going to be here before the piece started. So when the dogs start freaking out momentarily, you'll all know why. Unfortunately, Todd Sorensen, who is also one of our leaders up here, was supposed to join us. He's got an outage right now. So I think he's got a really great answer for the gray hair question, but we're not going to be able to hear from him. For myself, Mike Sisneros, I've been at Best Buy now for 9 years. Before that, 9 years at US Bank. And then before that, I was coming from the channel partner stuff. My first version of Citrix that I got introduced to was MetaFrame 2.0 XPE in 2001. And then when I was working for a couple of consultants, I actually got WinFrame 1.6 was the oldest one that I got pulled into. So that's my background. Let's start with we have a couple salespeople and we have Larry. So Larry, I'm going to pick on you first. With Tile Shop, with where you guys are at today, what are your thoughts for moving into the cloud? Or is that something that you guys are looking at all, or is it on? Where's that on your radar?
Yeah, so we're actively moving into the cloud, whether it's with Citrix or just our entire infrastructure. I don't want to give away too much information, but Tile Shop has a big initiative to be completely cloud. We're cloud first, and we're going to be completely cloud, hopefully by the end of 2023. With that being said, we started our cloud journey with Office, the Microsoft O365 suite. And our next foray into the cloud was Citrix Cloud. We've been in Citrix Cloud with a pretty small footprint for about the last year. One thing we are, and hopefully we'll be able to talk about this a little bit more in detail later. One thing we are doing is looking at DR with Citrix Cloud as on a different Azure tenant as a solution for co-locating DR versus just having it in Azure. So the cloud has been huge for us. It's been absolutely huge.
Outstanding. And I should mention here for anybody, if they've got questions for anybody in this group, feel free to just add them to the QA. The chat we'll answer those when we see them in here. Peter, how is that journey going for most of the people you work with?
So I'm going to try to, I'm a sales guy, as you acknowledged. So I'm going to try to be as fair and not give a salesy answer all the time here, because I know that that's not what you all are interested in. But with that said, for the first 3 years I worked at Citrix, I covered like a CAM patch, and what that means is it's the accounts that are between 5 and 10,000 people, and I covered 40 of those accounts. In my time of doing that, we transitioned, I think, 32 of them to Citrix Cloud. And so there was a lot to learn quickly. So for the most part, those transitions went successful, and they were able to go fast with the tools that we have available, such as, the cloud success engineers, cloud success managers, the automated configuration tool. That type of thing has really helped customers with that. But with that said, there's been some that the transition hasn't been so easy for, and there's some blockers that we're working on acknowledging here at Citrix. And so I think what you're going to see kind of going into the future is we're going to meet customers more where they are, and just kind of help folks with the tool sets, or kind of doubling down on our investment in the tool sets to get folks to cloud, or if it's just not right, continued investment in on-prem products and software as well too. So, but for the most part, like I said, I have a lot of experience with this. I've helped a large number of customers with that transition over the past 4 years. So
that's great. Before I ask Amy the same question, I just noticed in the chat, can you confirm that your night job is or is not being a forward for the Minnesota Wild?
Yes, I do moonlight. I do play for the Minnesota Wild. I'm a professional hockey player. It really is the hair that got me there. So.
All right. Amy, I know most of your customers traditionally are smaller size. So what do you see over with those folks?
Yes. So my role covers covered customers in the 500 to 5,000 range. And so I covered Minnesota, the Dakotas, and then Iowa, Nebraska. So that's kind of a feel for where I was. And I would say that it also varies. Like what I'd recommend too is figuring out what resources are available to you. So for us, we saw like especially when you worked with your customer success manager who can like meet with you and transition you there, but smaller customers can make the transition quicker, I'd say like in a matter of weeks, and then depending on the complexity of the environment it can range. So yeah, I think ahead of time things that help would be figuring out what your major, just go through the decision points, like are you going to keep storefront on-prem, are you going to use workspace service, how are you going to like handle your authentication, and then move in phased approaches from there. A
I know
general
we're
answer.
just kind of, yeah, it's a great answer. I know we're just starting the cloud journey. We just started moving some of the brokering into Citrix Cloud, which on one hand, I love the idea of kind of offloading some of the tedious work from the team, because you lose so much time just upgrading when you're on the CR path, those infrastructure devices. What, I'll be honest, scares the living bejesus out of me is that, what happens if the cloud goes down. So I know on our side, we are putting the cloud connectors, obviously on-prem, and then we're using the NetScalers and the storefront servers to talk directly to them, because there is that LHC feature, so we can keep operating and keep running when things go down. Like that's one of those things that lets me lose sleep. Most of my beard came from the grays in the beard came from profile management problems. The ones up in the hair that started early, those were printing problems, and it was just a few strands. The worries of cloud, they're going to have me looking like Santa Claus by Christmas. Plus side, I get a great side job out of that. Downside, I'm getting old early. Does anybody else have any other thoughts? Did we have any questions from anybody watching or thoughts on going out to the cloud, things that they're worried about? The other one I'll say, throw out the obvious one, is cost. I've been floored to see exactly what these costs will be out in the cloud. They're much higher than I think I expected.
And Mike, are you specifically talking about compute workloads in the cloud?
The compute workloads, yeah.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, and we get that a lot from customers. And the tricky thing is, Mike, too, I just wanted to comment on that real quick. A lot of customers don't exactly understand what their current data center costs are, but they know, and I'm assuming where you work, you're much further along on that spectrum of understanding, your current IT spend and where you're at, and translating that to cloud. With Citrix Cloud, we are doing a number of things within the service to help as much as possible. So just to kind of talk through, just a point of innovation, we have the ability, if you're in Azure now, to switch your disks when the VMs are powered off. So because you don't want to pay for premium disks that are attached to a VM that's in a powered off state. So we have the ability, when those machines are shut off, to try to switch out the volume. Along with Citrix Autoscale and those types of things, we're doing everything that we can in our power to make that bill as cheap as possible, understanding that's a pretty significant financial burden when you're faced with the move. So, but just wanted to throw that out there in case other folks are kind of coming along that line there. So,
a couple of questions that have come up. What do we see as largest pain points from migrating to Citrix Cloud? And Larry, where you're at in your transition, what's the pain point for you so far?
So I'll say my biggest pain point has actually been understanding how, being a old hat Citrix person, I've been doing this forever, and then trying to go to cloud. It's almost a relearning process. So there are things that I've built a Citrix Cloud environment twice now, because I had to tear the first one down. I thought it was going to work. I thought I could use my old understanding of how Citrix worked, and it's not necessarily the same. So I would say anybody who's looking to go that way, understand there's going to be a pretty big curve of relearning. So prepare for that. Don't throw everything into the cloud right away. Start small. You may have to rebuild and then pull back out and do it right the second time.
Yeah, it's a great one. Another, I think the newness is definitely a piece that comes out there. I know for us, there was a blip connecting to the cloud. It was actually a problem with our cloud connectors, and you hit it nail on the head, right? You're learning something new. Now you're looking at the cloud connectors and where are the logs and where's that piece that we can monitor to actually alert us that there's an issue that's there. It's a whole new learning piece of the puzzle that you have to transition to, because you don't have the delivery controllers inside your data center anymore. You can't go to the event log to get it. Now you have to depend on the cloud connectors, and that is kind of an interesting challenge. Another question we had come in here, or did Amy and Peter, either of you guys have any thoughts that you get from what you've seen from folks?
I was going to speak to one. Okay, this was kind of back on the putting workloads in the cloud point. Something clever I've seen a lot of customers do is I do have customers moving the workloads themselves into public clouds, but a lot of customers will keep their workloads on premises and they'll use cloud for like a disaster recovery situation, which I think is clever because then you're not exactly paying for, like a complete data center in the cloud, which gets very expensive very quickly. Instead, they'll have like a workload, like a VDA or two running in the public cloud, and then they can spin it up should their primary data center or secondary data center go down. The caveat there is just to make sure that you understand how long it's going to take to spin up those machines. If it's a few hundred, just make sure you test and then you report that back to the business. But I think that's kind of a clever way to minimize your consumption costs. I know going to a public cloud becomes a bit of a compute game in that you're trying to minimize the spend wherever you can. So I think that's something clever I've seen customers utilize.
If I could step in for a second, and I don't want to step on anybody's toes here, but what we figured out from a cloud cost standpoint is we had to weigh the cost of where a lot of our equipment is coming close to end of life. So we had to weigh the cost of do we start paying for more service for the equipment that we have on-prem? Do we start looking at new equipment? And when we started weighing those costs and weighing those out over a 5-year period, we realized that the cloud spend was probably going to be very close to the same. Now, we do have a little bit of a unique situation where our data center was not up to par. So we were looking at climate control costs and stuff like that too, that we looking at new air conditioning systems and stuff like that. So, but for us, we're probably the odd man out here, but cloud is actually going to be potentially could be less expensive for us over a 5-year period than staying on-prem.
Yeah, I just wanted to add real quick as well, Mike, too, on that topic. So, the original question, is what have been the pain points, and a lot of it does come down to cost and just this. If you've spent your life kind of managing a traditional data center, the concepts of cloud can be a little bit daunting, and just understanding how to lay out like a landing zone to support Citrix and then to scale with it successfully. So to Larry's point, I've had customers kind of tear things down, redo things, that type of stuff. My advice to anybody on the call is to work with your hyperscaler, whoever that may be, if it's Microsoft or if you're going with AWS or even GCP. Work with them to see what resources are available, because oftentimes, like Microsoft just published a new Citrix on Azure enterprise scale landing zone, complete with Visios and a whole walkthrough. It's out on Git this morning. So like the hyperscalers have a lot of knowledge on how to do this. And so it's good to work with your Citrix team and your support structure that you have within Citrix, but also if you have a relationship with any of the big three, there's a lot of knowledge that can be shared there as well too, to help you kind of see around corners. And I have one customer that, for example, is moving from on-prem to Azure Virtual Desktop with Citrix, or I should say Windows 10 multi-user, as their XenApp migration. And it took about a full year to get the image right with app layering and to kind of understand, the capacity of the Azure subscriptions and all of kind of the gotchas as they went to scale. But as soon as they went through that year-long planning, then it just kind of hockey sticked, and they were able to move desktops really quick up to Azure. So my advice is to just work with your hyperscaler and take advantage of every relationship that you have to ensure that you kind of get it right.
All right. I know the challenge for us does end up being kind of looking at the cost and understanding where to go. Where I see an advantage for the cloud for us is, and full disclosure, Larry and I worked together at Best Buy for a few years, so he remembers this pain point really well. We have a very flexible work environment. We almost double the number of users when we get into the holiday period, and so having that compute, all of that hardware that we would just sit running idle for more than 9 months a year would always kind of drive me nuts, right? And we had to stack everything up for that that peak period. We have to deliver on those critical holiday days, but we really don't need that on April 19th, right? And so that's where I'm hopeful that we'll really be able to see the benefit of cloud coming through. And then even just being flexible, someone comes around and says, I need to do something with high GPU for a project that's going to last a month and a half. And who wants to spend the money to go get a $3,000, $3,500 high-end workstation for a couple of months, and so we're hopeful that's really the ways we're targeting. I know one of the questions came through is, can I elaborate what kind of computing workloads you're trying to use in the cloud? We're very early in our transition right now. We're just moving our brokering out, but kind of like what I said before, we're looking at what can we do with our contact center users. Also, some of our developers are the offshore teams that use our system. So we really do have kind of users from all the facets of the business. So we're trying to, that's always been kind of the thing I've loved about Citrix. There's a lot of ways to do it. We're not everything's a nail. So you always use a hammer. It's like we have a full set of toolkits, a full toolbox, and finding the right tool for the right job. One other question came up here. Pete, who, if anyone, is doing PCI environments with Citrix Cloud?
Yeah, I wanted to touch on that. I think that came across as a question here just a couple of minutes ago. And one thing I don't think Citrix did a very good job of advertising is we actually did complete PCI DSS attestation of compliance for DAS. Just a couple of weeks ago. So if you go out to the Citrix Trust Center and then browse to the privacy and certifications, you'll be able to click on the PCI and DSS certification for DAS and read everything that's involved with that. But it essentially encompasses the cloud platform, desktop as a service, analytics, as well as workspace platform. And there's some things that you need to do for your environment specifically in order to kind of have that level of compliance. So I think in some scenarios, storefront might still be needed and ADC, but you can use the DAS control planes and the DDCs and SQL and all of that stuff in cloud. But yeah, I'd encourage anybody to just go out and explore that documentation in the Trust Center. That's only just a couple weeks old.
Thanks, Pete.
Yep.
One of the ways I'm looking at using the cloud is for leveraging it for DR. I think Amy mentioned that before. Larry, is that kind of on your radar as well, or what are other people thinking that that's a great candidate for using the cloud?
So not only is it on my radar, but it's actually something we were able to test at the end of last year. It's been a very, very successful and probably our biggest foray into Citrix Cloud is having a DR environment. I'll address, I saw a question too, maybe I can touch on this. Our other workloads and Mike, you talked about this a little bit too, our other workloads, as Mike mentioned, but for us, it's external vendors. We may have a contractor or a consultant or entire company come in here and help us do some work on deployment. And I'm not a fan of an outside vendor coming and connecting to our environment with their own laptop and coming in via VPN. We don't understand what kind of endpoint protection they have. But if we let them connect to a Citrix non-persistent VDI in the cloud, I feel a little more protected. Maybe it's a false sense of security, but I feel a lot more protected than having them come in via VPN.
I know we use that quite a bit, obviously, and that you remember, but I do like it because we get to the point that we can control that data flow, right? We can restrict the USBs, we can restrict the copy and paste, and our perpetual data never leaves our footprint, whether that's in the cloud, whether it's on-prem, and that's critical. You never worry about someone's lost laptop exposing stuff that it shouldn't, because it's so protected. I know our security guys like that a lot, and probably want me to stop talking for that. So, what about, like we're doing this one virtual? I think this is the third virtual Excel we've done because of COVID. I love it because it gives us the opportunity for Minnesota, North Dakota, Cedar Rapids, some of these other communities that aren't really close enough to any of these other big Excels to be included. But it also reminds me of the challenge that once COVID started coming in, of everybody going to Teams, and Teams and my virtual desktop users didn't really mesh real well. So I know for us, moving into the Teams optimizations really should just be called Teams offloading, but optimization's a prettier marketing name. I'm sure Citrix will be changing the name of that pretty soon here. I mean, it's been a couple of years. It's about time for a new name change. But I mean, that's how I set my alarm, right? My alarm clock every day is based on a Citrix name change. Yeah. Larry, is that something you've run into as well, or of using the optimizations?
So funny you should ask. No, because I will not let it happen. We have said that we are not going to be using Teams through Citrix. The caveat is that we will let people use the web version, but publishing Teams has been a pain, and using the web version just seems to flow a lot better. There is the feature set is getting pretty close. So yeah, I'd rather not risk the headache.
Yeah, Mike, from my perspective on Teams, I just want to chime in on that. So I do have customers that are using the optimization pack, the MTop for Teams, and really I think a lot of it. So I mean, there's obviously, it's a very complex technology stack. So there can be issues, and if you're using things like app protection policies or other types of things that can complicate that experience for the end user. My more successful customers with that have set the expectation with their end users related to what they're going to be able to do successfully in Teams within Citrix and what they're not going to be able to do. So that type of communication with the end users is how I've seen these things go very well versus very poorly. And to get to the point where Larry's at, where folks are just saying, we're not going to do it. So it's just important to kind of understand, what features are available across the different versions of Workspace app, the Teams API shim, as well as the VDA, and then just communicating with your end users on expectations. So, and if you can do that, and your network is set up to handle everything properly, it's possible to have a good experience there. But
I can add one other thing too.
Yeah, go ahead, Amy.
I was just going to have a comment. There are some nice Teams documentations that you can walk through, and some good troubleshooting documentation. But one of the best things you can do for Teams optimization, and this is a controversial topic, would be move to a current release cycle, especially because I think, what is it? Teams was the fastest adopted Microsoft product ever or something like that. And so when COVID happened, they were not only like Microsoft was constantly making changes to Teams, and then we were building in optimizations at the same time. And so, yeah, one of the best things you can do is if you can move to updating your VDAs every 3 months, and you can start utilizing those optimizations. I know it's controversial because it can be, I don't know, the CR versus LTSR conversation. There's always different people on different sides, but as far as Teams optimization goes, you can get a lot of benefits moving over to the current release cycle.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I'm really excited because I'm seeing the traffic here in the chat, and a lot of folks are talking about the Electron format for that Teams is written in, and so it is going to be interesting in the future to see what Microsoft might be doing to rewrite Teams. It'll be nice to see if they're going more towards entirely WebRTC based Teams, because then a lot of the optimization, the capabilities within the optimization pack will just kind of be at parity once Microsoft does a release. Because what you see currently, and it's no different than VMware or any of the other VDI players that are in the space, we have to try to keep up with what Microsoft is doing at release, and then work to either co-author code or work to catch up to Microsoft once they release a feature and make it work with the optimization pack. So if we ever see Microsoft do a rewrite or potentially go to 100% WebRTC based Teams, that I think that could be a good thing just for the larger community, not just Citrix, but all VDI, including native AVD and VMware and everyone else. So see what happens.
I know with us, I've got a number of my users that are offshore. So doing the Teams optimization was really critical for us because a lot of these are support folks coming in. And so instead of them coming back through the VDI back to my data centers and then up to Teams, getting really garbled audio, video, and screen sharing, letting their endpoints have the ability to go do that connection off to the side and then kind of merging them virtually for them had two benefits for us. A, made their user experience better, right? Because they're cutting out me, the middleman, to see that video or hear that audio. The other one that was really nice was, and I think this kind of probably offloads some of Larry's concerns, is all that extra encoding that was happening on my servers or on my VDIs. That was then getting transitioned into the user's endpoint device. So I've seen some good pieces with it. Of course, then what do we get? Amy mentioned the keeping up with the Joneses on the current release. How often are you having to get a ticket because some feature that somebody wants, that is some dumb share or together view or some other thing that's like that they see on other people's machines, they don't see inside their VDI, and that is a challenge that comes into play for sure. But I definitely would encourage anybody to look into it at least. We also do use Cisco Jabber soft phones, and so the version that's similar to that is called JVDI. I don't know why they decided to call it. I think it was originally called the Cisco VDI client, even though it didn't actually do any VDI other than just offloading the audio for the users. But if it weren't for that, COVID would have been really ugly for our company. So it was a kind of a game saver. Okay, Pete, I'm going to give you the choice. No, Amy.
Yeah.
Amy, I'm going to give Amy the choice. I have a really nice, easy sales softball-y Citrix question, and I have a hard one. Which do you want?
No. Well, now this is going to reflect on me.
No. Trust me, that's okay. And I'm okay if you take the easy one, because then I won't feel like a bully.
Yeah. How about I can take the easy one and Pete can take the hard one?
There you go. All right. So question from the group: what are some of the new features in 2203 LTSR we should all be aware of?
Ooh. Is that for Amy or for me?
Oh, that's for Amy. And if you've been looking at the chat, you're going to get a really ugly one.
Okay.
Let me think. I'm trying to. There's not like a main change that's come out that it's coming to mind off the top of my head. Like a lot of them have been very I don't know, like general optimizations. I'm trying to think, and it sounds bad, but it's been a little bit since I've kind of looked into the full what's new. So I might Pete, is there one that's coming to mind for you on the 2203?
Well, just Amy, I just think the release of 2203 in general was really good because we tried to push a lot of feature and functionality into 2203 from the previous releases and actually call it, an LTSR. So there's a bunch of stuff in 2203 that I think is good. And for the folks that are already on the cumulative updates, it's even, I think we're already on CU2 for it. So I am looking frantically for the release feature matrix that shows everything between 1912 and 2203, because it is very compelling to see how many features were released in 2203.
You get put on the spot.
Shannon
because
Adams
usually
mentions
the
updates.cloud is a great resource.
yeah, that's
it
true.
is. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And then that one's nice on the updates.cloud page, because it not only shows the features that have recently come out, but it'll show features that are currently in tech preview and what's on the roadmap. So that can be helpful as well.
All right, so Shannon Adams for the win. She's got the direct link for specifically 1912 to 2203. The hair must be creating drag and slowing you down is my assumption, Pete.
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening.
All right.
I don't have that problem.
Mike, all of my good Citrix friends that are out there, nobody yell at me, hurt me, anything, but I saw a lot of comments in the chat. I don't want to just brush it under the carpet. Peter, a lot of people are saying that they're really frustrated with support right now. Do you know of anything that's maybe coming or that will be helping alleviate some of the concern folks have?
Yeah, that's the tough question, Mike.
I don't know if I can get tougher.
Yeah, no, it has been a challenge. I was reading some of the chat, some of the comments out there, and it is interesting. And I'm going to try to be not salesy here, but I did see one comment where the folks were like, if you have a TAM, it really helps a lot. And so from my perspective, in the accounts that I cover, I only covered 9 accounts, Mike, but I think 6 of them have TAMs, and they've been a huge help. Thanks, Scott Lane. A huge help in just the support paradigm in general. But through the transition and to take private to Cloud Software Group, there's been, obviously there's some level of disruption when anything of that scale happens, and support was not like excluded from that. So there are things that are happening within the support structure now that are hopefully going to fix things for folks. So all I can say is there's going to be more information within the next couple of months on how we're kind of revamping some of that stuff. And so hopefully for the better for everybody. But, if you're not having good luck with support, I would encourage you to, make sure that you're talking with your partner, and also talking with if you have a partner, your Citrix account reps and SEs, to make sure that they're helping you track tickets and get traction and stuff like that. Just as I said earlier in the call, try to use your tools to the best of your ability. And also that, I feel your pain. And Citrix's Cloud Software Group is doing quite a bit here to try to fix things.
I'll be honest, from my side, from the customer side, I have a great TAM with Peter Brown. And I do feel like I need to buy him like a gift basket or some flowers, edible arrangements, something like that, because I know I've been very, very hard on him in the last few months.
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, they're there to help. So like I said, and I have customers that it's really interesting to me, Mike, that utilize TAMs very successfully, and some that ignore them. And it's really funny just to see kind of the mix there. And for the folks that are, taking advantage of that relationship in a good way and building a partnership with those TAMs, you can cut through a lot of stuff related to those tickets, especially the ones that are sitting out there forever. But yeah, no, I mean, that's my advice, is just to make sure that, your account team or your partner or your TAMs are just aware that you're having frustrations, and talk through some of the ways that you can go forward in a better way. So I'm trying my best.
I am also noticing that the one, the only, the legend Scott Lane is popping in. So Scott, I'm gonna reach out to you and ask you the next time you do the where you snip the connection demo, can you pull Pete in and maybe snip some of the hair?
This hair does not get snipped, Mike. Actually, okay. So I got a quick little story here. All right, and then I'm gonna transition. So in the chat earlier, there was one comment from this DJ Eshelman. No comment regarding hair related to career success. I have to address this really quick. So this wig that I'm wearing was given to me by a VP at Burnwood Group when I used to work there as a partner. Great company. And she challenged me. She said, hey, look, I'm going to give you a $50 gift card if you fly to Salt Lake City wearing this wig, have a meeting with the Church of Latter-day Saints with this wig on. Don't tell them it's a wig, right? And if you make it through the meeting without pulling the wig off because it's super itchy, you $50 is yours. So I went all the way to Salt Lake City, flew all the way to Utah, had this meeting with them, serious, gave them demos, did everything. And then at the end, it got so itchy, I kind of did this. And then I got a lot of looks like, oh, holy crap, this thing's actually a wig. And so it was really funny. But my point in saying all this is that candor actually helped build a great relationship. And we did a lot of stuff with those guys in the short amount of time that I was there. But so the wig does help. But with that said, I'm going to take it off because it's super itchy.
All right. I know we did see one question about success stories with hospitals moving to Citrix Cloud. I'm going to be absolutely honest. The best person I can know of to respond to that question would be Todd, who's unfortunately not with us right now. But if you let us know some communication information, I'll pass along Todd's pass your communication on to Todd and see if he can reply back for you. We're running towards the end. I want to take a few minutes to maybe kind of veer off on more of the career stuff. How did we get there? What are things that you guys think is helpful in development? And I think I'm going to start kind of, if you don't mind, like, Larry and I are old dogs. We all know the adage there. So Amy, you kind of came into our world really different. So how is it you develop and evolve in this environment?
Yeah. So I don't know how many of you are familiar. So I came from Citrix, actually, this new hire training program or leadership development program. So if you ever hear someone said I came through NHT or something like that. So the idea is for SEs and really for Citrix consultants too, typically, totally generalizing, they'll come from one of three places. They'll come from a customer, come from a partner, or you have to train them yourself. So Citrix essentially said, let's look for people that are, studied something technical in college and like talking to people, and we'll train them Citrix because there's not very many people who study Citrix in school. And so what it is, it goes typically about 9 to 12 months, and there's Citrix architects come in. We work on various consulting projects, and we also work on getting different certifications as well. And then from there, you'll typically get placed somewhere in the country. So my plan was to go to DC, but I don't know if any of you have met Blake Chandler. He convinced me that Minnesota was the place to be, and that's how I ended up here. And I guess on the general career, I could say this. So for me, what's helped me in my career is I'm not one of those people who's, I don't know, like a big happy hour person. Like some people said, oh, just go talk to people, just network, just go around and chat. And that's never really worked for me. But what works well for me is I love getting involved, and I love doing projects, and I love learning from people. Something that I noticed is, like, I was very nervous to start in the field because there's so many Mikes of the world that's been doing Citrix for, a lot longer than I have. So a lot of my learning just came from listening to as many people as I possibly could and understanding the experience and playing around and just trying to do the best that I could, and then volunteering for just everything that I could get my hands on. Like I met people from doing projects, and I met people from just doing things that I think other people didn't want to do. Like I think I signed up for a project. Actually, I shouldn't even call it a project, but it was in the program, and we were giving out cups. We gave out these nice kind of sippy cups. I don't know, cups with a straw to people who came and taught our class. And it's like this little subtle way, like no one wanted to do it. That was why I was doing it. But I was the person emailing the architect saying, hi, my name's Amy. I was in this class. We have this cup for you. Can you meet up with us at this time? So it's little things like that I think people don't want to do, but that's really how I've found a lot of success at naturally making a lot of friends with people and naturally learning as much as I could about Citrix.
Outstanding.
Long-winded answer.
I love it. I'm going to just say one thing real fast for all of those in the comments. Pete Peterson is unable to reply to any of your comments, and right now it's driving him nuts. So please lay it on thick.
Yeah.
We're right here at the end of our time. I'm gonna make it a nice, simple, easy one because he should already know the answer to this. Larry Marshall, I am a firm believer of a specific book that all IT people, no matter what they do, should be reading and treating that as a Bible and as a real primer for anything we do. What is that book?
The Phoenix Project.
The Phoenix Project, absolutely. For any of you folks that are trying to get ahead, figure out how to not have stuff blow up in your face. Definitely, I think that's my one takeaway for folks is read that book. It's an easy read. It's not a textbook. It's done in a story format, and it's an excellent piece. So with that, Larry,
I'll just say my one is be yourself. Don't compromise who you are. It'll take you far, whether it's Citrix or whether it's any other part of your career. Always be you, and don't forget that.
I love it. Larry, Amy, Pete, thank you very much for your time. And by the way, for everybody's reference, I did suggest we would go out and do this conversation on a lake and do some ice fishing at the same time. I got zero interest from anyone to do that.
Now you know. Right, Mike?
I guess. All right. Nazir, all